Hey everybody, Who's Your Jedi here with another review for you. This time I'm talking episode 2 of season 8 of Dexter called Every Silver Lining. And overall, this is a pretty solid episode. It really kind of continues a lot of the setup that I think was happening in the first episode, but here things really start to advance along. So anyway, let's get into things. First of all, I have to say I really like the episode title this time around. And I think this is something that might be lost on a lot of people. As I understand it, I'm pretty sure this is a reference to a song called A Touch of Grey by the Grateful Dead. And there's a line in the song that goes, "Every silver lining has a touch of grey." And I'm not really a Deadhead by any means, but I will give the Dead credit that Touch of Grey is actually a very good song. It's really very enjoyable to listen to. And honestly, seeing as how she's the one that actually invokes this particular turn of phrase, Dr. Vogel is somebody who is old enough that she would be familiar with this song. So that's a nice touch. And speaking of Dr. Vogel, we learn more about her connection to Dexter and Dexter's past. Her hand in Dexter's, as I like to think of it, Dexter's secret origin. She's kind of the co-creator of Dexter, as she herself states. And I have to say, this is really interesting stuff. I mean, it makes sense that Harry would consider reaching out to someone in regards to Dexter, especially seeing as how when he first started doing this, Dexter was still 10 years old. It wasn't like Dexter was doing anything that he could be charged with. But that story about Dexter going to the crime scene and stealing the little glass shard that is so very reminiscent of the blood slides that he takes to this day. Very, very, very nicely done. Now, I'm not under any illusions that this is something they've had waiting in the wings for like 8 years. But the writers were very, very smart in the way they constructed this, adding this retcon. And I really do hate to use that term, but let's just call it additional details to Dexter's origin. But as I was saying, they really did a nice job of the way of working Dr. Vogel in there in a way that seems believable and natural, and her connection and relationship with Harry and how all that plays out is also nicely done. Now, I think they maybe were hinting, or maybe were deliberately trying to make us wonder if Harry and Dr. Vogel may have had a more than a friendship relationship, and frankly, it wouldn't surprise me if we got into that some more as this season rolls along. After all, we know that Harry did have a connection to Dexter's mother. In fact, Harry was quite fond of banging his confidential informants just in general. But anyway, getting into that, it all does basically boil down to Dr. Vogel being a counterpart to Harry, the yin to Harry's yang, which of course in some ways mirrors what's going on with Dexter and Deborah. As Dexter even says, whoever Deb was before she went into that shipping container. A shipping container. What an interesting coincidence that the transformation of both Dexter and Deborah into the monsters, if you will, in Deborah's case, that they have become, both happened in a shipping container. Both revolved around the death of a woman who was, in some ways, you can sort of make the case that LaGuerta was, at the very least, a mentor figure, if not a mother figure, to Deborah. Of course, LaGuerta was also a horrible, manipulative bitch. But, well, Deb seems to be perfectly content to sort of really look at LaGuerta with rose-colored glasses, so we're just going to have to let that go. But there is this darkly delicious role reversal going on with Dexter and Deborah. Here, Deborah is almost eager to have Dexter manipulate evidence to cover for her. While last season, it was complete and utter anguish for her to do the same thing for Dexter's sake. And I like that Dexter calls her on that. Of course, Deborah immediately turns it and throws it right back in his face with, what if you weren't a psychopath, or what if you weren't a serial killer? And it's all that really makes Dexter realize that, as I said, the Deb that he knew is gone, and the Deb that is there now, he doesn't know what to make of her, doesn't know what to do with her. And Dr. Vogel even points this out to him. You are the cause of her anguish. What makes you think you can be the solution? So, you have to wonder if maybe Dr. Vogel can't help but wonder if, or maybe, well, actually, she doesn't know the full details of what's going on there, I guess. But you have to wonder if maybe Morgan number 2 operating under Harry's code might be a potential option for what might be happening down the road. Yikes, huh? Anyway, another thing that I like about Dr. Vogel as a character is that a lot of the stuff that she says about psychopaths is actually based in real science. Like she said that humans are born with an innate sense of justice. Well, there's actually some scientific evidence to that. Just the other week, I was reading about this experiments they did with babies. And the long story short is, the short version of it is, they would show babies pictures of people deliberately pushing other people down, and the babies would get upset over this. Now, like I said, this was a couple of weeks ago, so I forget all the hodgepodge of various details, but that was in there, and they repeated this, and it's basically things that even a baby can understand are wrong will upset them. And apparently, babies have a much stronger sense of right and wrong than one would ever suspect. Now, of course, this is apparently very new research, so I don't think maybe it should be absolutely taken as gospel right at the moment. But as I said, it's certainly something that science, at least for the moment, seems to say, yeah, this looks like it's the case. And what she also says about CEOs and politicians, many of them having traits that are in common with psychopaths. Again, that is absolutely 100% true. That is all based on real science, real research into people like that. And, I mean, it has even been said that there are a lot of people, like in politics and corporate America, and heck, corporate everywhere, who are like that, have really just found a way to channel their darker impulses into ways that are socially acceptable. And as Dexter even points out, that doesn't, of course, mean that they haven't been responsible for the deaths of quite a lot of people over the course of history. Just maybe not in such an intimate way, like the way Dexter prefers. Either way, it's certainly is very interesting to consider. Our serial killer for this season now has a name, the Brain Surgeon. I have to say, I like that one quite a bit. It's a little bit on the comic booky side. Excuse me. But, you know, it's just one of those things that's crazy enough to seem like, okay, I can go with this. And frankly, after just how insanely over top the Doomsday Killer was, yeah, the Brain Surgeon seems quite rather tame by comparison. Another thing that I like that Dr. Vogel points out is she says to Dexter that he's a force for good in the world. Now, this is something that in my previous reviews, I've talked about. And if you think about everything that he's done, Dexter is probably a net good force in the universe. Now, whether he himself is good is, of course, highly, highly debatable. I mean, Dr. Vogel even says, you're not evil. And we shouldn't, I think, take that as a sign that Dexter is good. It just means he's not evil. Dexter has removed many people from the world who are undoubtedly evil. So, through his actions, he has probably saved many lives, and ultimately the world, if you run the numbers in the whole grand scheme of things, yes, you can make a pretty good case that yes, the world is probably a better place for what Dexter has done. But Dexter is still a serial killer. So, yeah. And speaking of his serial killer tendencies, I love when he breaks into that Lyle guy's house and is poking around trying to find out where he might have hidden stuff. And he just pauses for a moment and looks at the air conditioner and goes, "Nah." Yeah, that was a good one. Let's see here. But anyway, let's kind of wrap up talking about Dexter and Dr. Vogel. Overall, I do like the relationship. As I said, it's she's a very interesting counterpart to Harry, and seeing her step in there and sort of take on, in a way, an almost motherly role. She even kind of lampshades this in this episode, and I really like how she talks about how, she equipped Dexter with a means for him to survive like any mother would. And she, Dexter even kind of points out, like, when Harry died, I really wanted to reach out to someone, to have someone to talk to. And you can't help but wonder, well, what if Dexter had known about Dr. Vogel then? How would things have played out? The dynamic between them, I think, is really just really interesting. I hate to keep using that word over and over again, but seeing how that's going to play out, and of course seeing Harry, quote-unquote Harry, his reaction to all of this, it's going to be some good stuff. Deb. Not a huge amount to say about what's going on with her this episode, which is kind of surprising, seeing as how she kind of murdered a dude. But, yeah, I really am not liking the way Deb is just needlessly confrontational with her employer. I mean, man, this guy must be really fond of Deb, because, she's a freelancer. This guy really does not have to take this bullshit from her. But, her going off and killing El Sapo like that is certainly an interesting development, but I don't think, apart from that scene at the very end in the alley where, Deb does that whole role reversal that I talked about and wanting for Dexter to tamper with evidence, that was a good moment, but yeah, I don't think that has quite been realized yet. I'm sure we'll see, of course, more of this next episode, but yeah, the whole killing El Sapo thing, it just didn't quite click for me in terms of characterization or storytelling. I really can't exactly put a finger on what about it didn't work for me. It just didn't work for me. And also, El Sapo was pretty stupid for not killing Deb when he had the chance. I mean, the only reason he didn't do it, as he says, is no one was paying him to do that. Well, okay, dude, but you're still leaving behind an eyewitness. I mean, you're a hitman and a criminal. That's not good. I mean, really, that was just needlessly stupid. But as we know, if you're a main character on Dexter, you can expect a pretty heavy degree of plot immunity. Yeah, nothing really to say about Quinn this episode. I just really continue to not give a crap about the guy. And honestly, he even kind of pissed me off this episode. He goes, well, what if I don't want to make something out of my life? Ladies and gentlemen, if there is one thing I would like you to understand about me, I cannot stand people like that. I just absolutely can't stand them. And this is this probably shouldn't come as a great surprise. I'm a teacher. My job is to educate people. My job is to help people be better, be smarter, so that they can go out there and do something with their lives. So people who choose to not do something with their life, people who just choose to be bumps on a log, or just embrace willful ignorance, or just embrace I don't give a damn, piss me off to no end. But then, Quinn has been pissing me off to no end for a couple of seasons now. Well, Quinn, at least you're not an alcoholic anymore, and you haven't slept with a witness in a while. Oh yeah, and Angel continues to be the most decent person at Miami Metro. Ah, Angel, man, I love you. You are a good dude. You have made some dumb mistakes over the years, but you continue to be like the one person on this show I would genuinely want to be friends with. And with that said, folks, we're going to call it here. As always, please comment, rate, and subscribe. And of course, you can follow me on Twitter at Hoosier Jedi. Until next time, take care and have a good one.